But I'm delighted to welcome to the stage our next two guests on the Spotlight on Morocco. His Excellency, the Ambassador for Morocco, Hakim Hajoui. Your Excellency, please come to the stage. And the CEO of Tanger Mehdi Tazi-Riffi. Mehdi, you're very welcome. Please come and... I think probably, Ambassador, the starting point for this session is obviously Morocco is in a strategic geographical position, very positive between Africa, Europe and the Middle East. And I think we're not sort of speaking out of turn if we say Morocco has made fantastic, significant progress in the last 15 or so years. And I think it would be very helpful to just for the people here today, just to understand a little bit more about what your government's ambitions are to attract particularly more capital and businesses coming from the United Kingdom to locate in Morocco.
Thank you very much, Sir Mark. And let me start by saying good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to thank Invest Africa for this debate and to say that it's an honor for us to be the country partner this year. We had a fantastic event yesterday about Morocco's investment, where indeed we spoke about the country's development and its acceleration over the last decade, indeed. You know, when you look at Morocco's progress, I don't know if you've been there recently, but the investments that's been made in infrastructure, the investments in skills, all the reforms that's been undertaken by His Majesty the King when it comes to economic or social reforms are quite impressive. And in just 2 decades, I think we tripled our GDP. There are some investments that we made in renewable that were quite at the vanguard at that time, 15 years ago, building, for example, the largest solar farm in the world, Noor in Ouarzazate, which allowed us not only to produce cleaner energy, but also to decarbonize our economy and diversify our economy through industrialization in actually developing industries that did not exist 15 years ago, which are booming today, such as the automotive and the aerospace one. We're able today to manufacture more than 700,000 cars per year. And there's no one single plane, commercial plane, that does not have a component that's been manufactured in Morocco today. So, you know, a great acceleration, but also building on this very strategic position, as you said, as a hub connecting Morocco to Africa and the world, investing massively in transport and infrastructure, such as the largest port of Africa today, Tanger Med, and I'm glad the CEO is here next to me to speak about it, to continue to enhance regional integration and connect Morocco in terms of trade and partnership as a gateway to the continent. And when it comes to that position of hub, interestingly to say that Morocco is the second largest investor in the continent, the first investor in West Africa, and 2/3 of our FDIs go to the African continent. So a very important Africa strategy that is a core of the South-South cooperation of His Majesty the King, which is really to bring prosperous development to the continent through investment, but also areas encompassing peace and security, human development, culture, education, and so forth. So we have an ambitious targets in renewable today to reach 50% of renewables by 2030. Great opportunities when it comes to investment to continue to industrialize the country, and in terms of connectivity, you know, to continue to develop our ports, airports, and other infrastructure. And this is where we need indeed massive private investments, because we want to move from 1/3 of private investment today to 2/3. And that was the purpose of yesterday's conference.
Thank you, Ambassador. And it was an excellent conference. And for, I think the key message, Ambassador, that I take out of your remarks just now is that, of course, whilst Morocco is a potentially very exciting investment destination in its own right, it also has huge potential to serve as a gateway both into Africa, but also around Africa. And in that context, Mehdi, not everybody here would have been at the conference, the forum yesterday. So I think it would be excellent for people to understand a little bit more about what you're doing at Tanger Med, the scale of it, which is just mind-blowing, and the potential for businesses to locate there, and how they can then connect not just to the rest of Africa, but to the rest of the world.
Many thanks indeed, and thank you for inviting me. In few words, Tanger Med is, the way we define ourselves, we are an integrated global logistics hub, which translates into the largest port in the Med, besides being the first port in Africa for the last couple of years, but as well, the largest industrial platform, 2 or 3 figures to size it. Last year, we turned over roughly close to 9 million containers. But in the backyard of the port, which is our industrial platform, we have approximately 1,000 companies that produce in excess of 15 billion US. In automotive, aeronautics, all of these components are actually using the ports and serving global markets. Now, if we go back to actually our role for Africa, I think it was said a bit earlier, maybe three figures to either set the stage or size the problem. The distinguished speakers a bit earlier spoke about the intra-African trade. I'll just add two figures to that. The first one is obviously the share of Africa into global import-export. That's less than 5%, first. Second, connectivity. What Africa needs is connectivity, and it is exactly what we are delivering. We are connected on a weekly basis to 180 worldwide ports, and out of the 180, 40 are African ports, which means that we play this pivotal role in ensuring that African ports, 40 on a weekly basis, do get this connectivity so that Africa gets more and more share of and contributes to global import-exports, knowing that genuinely Africa has a trade imbalance. Trade over GDP peaks at 75%. So the role and the pressure on ports is yet to grow. And for that, ports need to be more instrumental and get closer to the structure of the maritime links. And for that, they need hubs. And Tanger Med is exactly playing that role in ensuring that Africa gets the connectivity it deserves to ensure that more economic development is allowed, is permitted.
And just so everybody understands, this is not a development in progress. It's up and running and facilitating the sort of things you're talking about already. Could you just give us a feel for, not necessarily from the UK, but from other companies around the world, how many are there already, the sort of broad range of sectors they're in, and how you would like to try and encourage and facilitate more people coming, more investors and business coming from the UK?
Sure. Our model, maybe I'll sum it up in a few words. We are an infrastructure-led development, which holds 2 pillars. The first one is economic development through logistics and industrial development through infrastructure. 2 figures to size it. Public investment to date, 3 billion US. Private investment to date, 7 billion. So we are indeed a magnet for FDI to Morocco. But that FDI is not only translating in us increasing our industrial GDP or creating jobs, more than 100,000, but actually allowing multinationals to use this unique position. We are on the Strait of Gibraltar. Strait of Gibraltar is 20% of global trade that crosses naturally. What we offer to multinationals that are looking for new positions, regardless of the background, China plus one, friendshoring, nearshoring, dealing with different uncertainties, we are offering through this port both industrial and logistics competitiveness, which is used today by very large, the list will not be exhaustive, but I can mention we have obviously a lot of international companies from Europe, from the US. Most recently, we have started receiving a lot of Chinese industrialists that are actually using this position, not only to serve Europe because we are the doorstep of Europe, but actually to serve global markets.
Ambassador, can I ask you to sort of just articulate some of the key economic sectors that your government would like to see investing in Morocco? You mentioned renewable energy very passionately and rightly earlier, and you've already made huge progress, perhaps ahead of almost anywhere else in the world in that sector already. But also, could you, obviously, businesses looked for competitive advantage. The world capital is a very fluid process and is looking for the place where it can get its best returns. Are there incentives, taxation breaks? Are there free zones where companies who are located there can benefit? And if so, how does that work?
Yes, I mentioned renewable, which is very important. And just to give you an idea, renewables today and the energy sector represent more than 50% of the upcoming investment in infrastructure. So this is a massive one. It goes also with the vision of the kingdom to be a hub for green hydrogen. So very important one. Infrastructure in general, I would say, is very important across the board, from transport, logistics, new ports. We've, just to give you an idea, built more than 1,800 kilometers of highways over the last decade, and this will continue. New airports, new ports in the north of the country, in the Mediterranean, in the area of Nador, but also in the south of the country, in Dakhla. It will require massive investments in infrastructure. The World Cup that we haven't mentioned will also play as a leapfrog to those investments in many areas again. Of course, stadiums, but also everything that is around, all the ecosystem, so hospitals, training centers, and so forth. So infrastructure across the board. But then, of course, you have, the tourism sector, which is quite important. So real estate, the hospitality sector, everything that is around. Technology is another one. So I would say that Morocco offers pretty much a large range of opportunities. Interestingly, when it comes to incentives, the Moroccan government has put in place a new charter for investment to improve the business climate and the investor journey, bringing incentives, financial incentives, up to 30% of the total capex. And this is in addition to, many attractive measures to remove the restrictions of when it comes to free transfer of income, dividends, and profit for non-residents. So that's key, and I think it makes it a very attractive place for investment. The UK government as well, through UK Export Finance, has committed to £4.5 billion to attract more investment in Morocco. So that's significant as well.
One of the things that I was very struck with at yesterday's investment forum was the confidence that those who are already investing in Morocco have of being able to find the right quality educated workforce to fulfill some of the very sophisticated tasks in the automotive and aeronautical businesses, as well as other sectors as well. So, Ambassador, it might be helpful just to say a little bit about the education system in Morocco. And I know you're looking to enhance it and improve it through digital education and investment, but also some of the healthcare aspects that you were talking about, your colleagues were talking about yesterday, in terms of upskilling the health facilities, particularly in the context of the 2030 World Cup that you're hosting?
No, as I said, one of the biggest strengths of the country is the stability and the skills and the people. So as I said, we invested massively in skills, in vocational training, in universities. We have a flagship university today in Morocco, which is the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. It's becoming one of the largest African universities. So we continue to invest in skills and more generally, what we call the social state. So everything that is linked to the well-being of the people, so education, healthcare, justice, and so forth. Just to give you a figure, 40% of the GDP is dedicated to that social state investment in the capacity of our people. This is why it's very important for us when we get those investments is to make sure that we create more jobs, we create capacity, we have as much local content as possible to continue to train our next generation, transfer of skills, innovation, and technologies there, and we have the recipient for that through those institutions.
Thank you. Mehdi, could I ask you to say a little bit more detail about the opportunities that Tanger Med creates to act as a hub to distribute goods, both through the 40 ports around Africa you mentioned, and be interested to know where the key ones of those are, but also through other potential infrastructure to take goods by road or rail or air to other destinations in Africa?
Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity. One figure maybe is just out. So on the global ranking, we are the 19th port over 500 container ports. That's based on the volume that we're handling. However, there's a new ranking that S&P and World Bank came up with, and that is to measure actually the performance of ports. Performance of ports is indeed of the essence because it measures how ports are actually participating in enabling supply chains. And we all know what efficient supply chains means since COVID and post-COVID. And there, we are the 4th port worldwide in terms of the efficiency that we're delivering. So our offer or our value proposition is obviously this unique position, but also an effective infrastructure that delivers logistics competitiveness that a multinational ought to require. Now, that translates obviously in the quality of the investments that we have attracted. The largest maritime players and logistics players are already settled in Tanger. And like I said, this is also being used for different logistics hubs. I can mention a few, Adidas, Decathlon, many others, using obviously Tanger not only to serve Africa, but also to Europe, because we have also translated this position through a Ro-Ro traffic. I don't want to compare between Calais or Dover, but we are not in that level. But last year we did almost 500,000 trucks, and our next objective is actually to attain the 1 million trucks simply because we're only separated to Europe by 14 kilometers, which means that we have a lot of ferry services, but ferry means for a business owner or business decision maker that he can very easily decide to settle in Morocco and serve also, obviously global markets, but also serve Europe while being in a very attractive business environment, both in terms of competitiveness, but also in terms of tax regime. So, and that is also what has triggered very large industrial companies. And interesting enough, maybe I'll illustrate it, because I think the quality of the workforce can be, I'll take 2 typical examples. Renault has 20 kilometers away from the port, the largest car plant in Africa. And that by itself is a compelling example simply because 9 cars out of 10 from day one were able to be sent to Europe in the European quality standards. And that translates the quality and the ability of Moroccan workforce to very quickly abide and serve the needs of a multinational that needs this quality of skill sets. And this is obviously the case for many others. The first company that settled in our industrial zones, we run, as we speak today, approximately 30 million square meters of different special economic zones are scattered in a radius of 50 kilometers away from the port. So the first companies that actually settled in our zones are Japanese companies. So I think that tells a lot about the quality of the workforce and Moroccan workforce all across the levels of the ladder.
Yes, Ambassador.
I wanted to add something about the Atlantic because it's at the core of the discussion with Tanger. And I think also for the Africa debate, I would like to mention something that is key, which is the vision of His Majesty for the Atlantic, which is basically more than just a geographic space. And obviously it's key. We spoke about supply chains and all the maritime traffic that is now going there. So that bold vision is beyond just a geographic space. How can we create a shared space for prosperity, development, and progress, leveraging the Africa Atlantic, which is actually half of the African population, half of the African GDP, and leverage those countries, including Morocco, with its 3,000 kilometers of coast, with its port from Tanger in the north to Dakhla in the south, and channel those maritime opportunities when it comes to trade, energy, fisheries, and so on, channel them to the landlocked countries in Africa, in particular in the Sahel, to enhance regional integration, but also to foster peace and development. And this is again part of the South-South cooperation of the Kingdom of Morocco for Africa. You mentioned skills. I didn't say that Morocco trained through the Agency for International Cooperation more than 40,000 students from other countries of Africa, and 80% of them have scholarships. So it's a comprehensive, again, strategy.
Thank you. Now, sadly, we've run out of time, but Ambassador, I am going to give you an opportunity to have a last word. There's a lot of investors, a lot of capital sitting in the room. What message would you like to leave them with?
Well, I would say it's happening now. You wouldn't be a first mover, but don't be a latecomer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.